And we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next live stream on the topic of the building blocks of the new reality, crypto in the metaverse. My name is Valentin. I'm your host today. And before we start with the introduction, I would like to do some housekeeping. This event is live streamed on YouTube. Let me just disable my second audio channel. Okay, yeah. So we're live on YouTube. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat section below in the live stream. If you like what we do and want to follow more of these discussions, follow us on YouTube under International Token Standardization Association. And visit also our website, itsa.global, and you can find all the social links there so you can follow us on social media. Now, before I ask my guests to introduce themselves, I'll give you a brief intro history of the metaverse, the topic of the metaverse, and then we'll jump right into the discussion. So the metaverse concept was first coined in the science fiction book Snow Cash in 1992. In 2003, Second Life, which is considered as the first metaverse platform, was introduced and attracted enormous attention from both industry and academia. One of the most important breakthroughs of Second Life compared to previous platforms is that it allows users to create, own, and trade their virtual creations. In the last several years, thanks to the development of AR, VR technology, and especially the introduction of blockchain technology, the term metaverse has again emerged and triggered huge attention from society. While AR, VR enables the immersive and embodied experience in virtual world, blockchain technology revolutionizes metaverse digital asset management and provides necessary tools to address a wide range of issues in the metaverse. Now, I would like also to ask our guests to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about you, about maybe your blockchain journey and what's your occupation right now. And let's start with Max. Hi, Max.
Hi, Valentin. Yeah, thanks for picking me first. My name is Max. I'm head of business development, sales and marketing at 21E6 Capital. My journey was pretty much just through university and getting lucky, having friends that were interested in blockchain and crypto assets. That was really my draw towards it. And then ever since, I haven't looked back. 21E6 Capital is a Swiss-based crypto investment advisor. So we typically work with professional investors and high net worth individuals. We have a strong focus on crypto hedge funds and a fund database. But more recently, or I would say maybe for the last 6-7 months, we've really been exploring the metaverse, the topic of how to invest in the metaverse, which is, as a professional investor, quite difficult sometimes. And we're working on a metaverse token index project together with ITSA.
Thanks, Max. Let's go through with Adhikar.
Yeah,
Hi, Adhikar.
sure. Thanks. Hi, Valentin, and really nice to be part of this exciting event. And yeah, maybe I'll give a quick intro about myself, what we're doing. Again, I started my career in the financial services world. I was with Goldman Sachs covering their hedge funds and private equity business. And then post that, my tryst with blockchain started, I think, in the first bull market in 2016. Started learning, reading a lot about it. In fact, I did my master's at London School of Economics, primarily focusing on emerging tech, more so in the areas of DLT, AI. And those are some of the areas where I started to really understand and learn a lot more. And then my previous venture, my first startup, was an immersive AR, VR experiential learning-based startup. So that was, again, my kind of journey into the metaverse. Was quite an amazing time. I think over the 4 years, we scaled it to quite a few countries. And then obviously right now with SignaX, which was started last year, we are focusing on building metaverse infrastructure for, I would say, the next billion users, mainly focusing on real world use cases on the enterprise, industrial, gaming side as well, and taking things forward. So yeah, I mean, exciting times. Like any new technology, a lot of different areas to explore. So look forward to discussing today.
Thanks, Adhikar. Roman?
Yeah, hi guys. Roman, I'm German. Have been in consulting ever since 2008. Always surfing at the interface between business and IT. And then 2017, I started out in crypto as sort of like a clueless moon boy, buying my first Bitcoin, not really knowing what it's all about. But then over the following years, I dove quite deeply, especially into smart contract blockchains. I'm sort of like an Ethereum maxi, I guess, nowadays. And last year, I had the chance to merge these two things, consulting and crypto Web3, by founding Web3 Architects with a great crew of co-founders. And our job at Web3 Architects is basically to support business clients on their journey towards Web3. And one key component of that journey is the metaverse. So quite excited to discuss that with you guys today.
Thanks, Roman. And last but not least, Stefan.
Yes, hi Valentin, great to be here. Yes, my background is I studied business administration and got into crypto around about 2019, witnessing the whole crash in 2020, and just got sucked into the abyss of crypto ever since. Started out with DeFi and mostly trading, and then also ventured a bit into NFTs. And I'm now a research associate at the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, where we also host the DeFi Talents program, which is a mentoring program for everyone who wants to get in touch with Web3 with DeFi. And that's an 18-week program where we try to help to onboard as many people to crypto as possible. Yes.
Thanks for the intro round. And let's start with a simple one. What is the metaverse from your point of view? We've seen a lot of people giving different definitions. It's still unclear for many of our viewers or followers what's exactly the metaverse, because there are a lot of floating ideas floating around. So Max, if you would like to start, how would you describe the metaverse in your point of view?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Like you said, probably one of the most complex questions to start the panel, I guess, and I'm sure there'll be some different opinions. From my view and from our view, I think we need to, in some sense, differentiate between, let's say, the decentralized metaverse projects and kind of this real on-chain stuff. And then on the other side, you have like centralized companies who are working on virtual worlds as well. Like, Roblox, Meta, Facebook, the most well-known. And I think for us, we would like to separate that a little bit. And when we talk about the metaverse, we're talking about these decentral virtual worlds. And then in that sense, a definition I quite like, it's kind of lifted from a couple different ones and put together by us, but it says something like that the metaverse is an interoperable network of virtual worlds, typically with their own economy and identification system. And then whatever happens in these worlds can be very, very different and very niche, sector focused, or very broad.
Mm-hmm. Adhikar, I think you also have an interesting description because you're involved in the metaverse. So I would like to hear your opinion as well.
Yeah, sure, Valentin. And I think, as you rightly said, today, metaverse has so many different meanings for so many different people. But, put together, if I have to, just say in one line, it's really a virtual world where you as a user can not just interact, but, either earn, learn, play, do different types of things together at once. And I just also want to bring out a differentiation because, when we talk about metaverse, yes, there are these virtual worlds and yes, there are a lot of platforms. But the fact is, if we have to combine it as a broader entity, even virtual working, for example, is some kind of metaverse. While, let's say even Google Meet, for example, or Zoom or anything, in a lot of cases, you and me spread over a few thousand kilometers, yet able to connect, interact, and talk to each other. And that's really, I feel, the underlying use case of the metaverse is where we are bringing in people, communities together, and really creating that content and sort of services where people make the most of it. It could be, either making money through, NFTs, which we'll obviously talk about later in the session, or even just making good connections with the others. So I personally feel Metaverse is more of an area or a zone where you're interacting with people in a virtual setting, and really trying to identify those enterprise level use cases of having these immersive experiences built together. So yeah, that's my take of it.
Okay, thanks. Let me jump to another one which is closely related. Like in the crypto space, especially, we had a hype cycle around the metaverse. As a topic, the metaverse rose in fame in 2021 when Facebook, the parent company of Facebook, renamed itself to Meta. Where do we stand now today? Because it was a huge hype cycle. We saw a lot of VC money pouring into any type of metaverse projects. Now we're in crypto winter. Are people interested in the topic? Of course they are, but is there huge interest? Is it reduced? What's the activity, especially from blockchain point of view? We had a lot of projects like Decentralized, Sandbox, which are now maybe struggling to get users. How do you see this, Roman? Do you think this is just a temporary stuff? Do we have a problem with identity, or what on the topic of what is metaverse? How do we combine blockchain with metaverse? And what do you think is going to be the future in terms of activity, and what happened actually since the hype cycle?
Yeah, I think what happened is a question that we've been asking ourselves quite a lot recently in the crypto space.
Yeah.
But when it comes to metaverse, I would say the term is a bit burned at the moment. And maybe as long as Mark Zuckerberg doesn't rename his company, it will remain burned. But I think the potential and also the potential contribution of crypto, of blockchain to this evolving thing that has been branded as metaverse, I think this is more pivotal than it's ever been. And there's also a lot of exciting developments when it comes to the technical side there. But before we dive into that, maybe I can chime in with my short definition of what I would say is the metaverse. And I would put it very simply. I would say it's a space to express your digital identity. Kind of adding to what Adika also said, actually what we have just right now is a piece of the metaverse, the session we have right now. The first emails that were written were the first stepping stone on the way towards the metaverse, ICQ, these chatting services, and all the other technical means that have been added since then are additional pieces in the broader toolbox of how we express our digital identity, how we have social and commercial interactions in the virtual space. And to me, that's the metaverse. And I don't think there will ever be a point in time where we can have a fixed definition. Okay, this is how it works. These are the essential tools, and this is how it will remain. But rather, and that's what makes it so exciting from my point of view, it's highly dynamic. Like what's the metaverse right now is not what it will be in three months from now, because maybe new technical means will have emerged by then. The contribution of AI guided NPCs, for example, in the metaverse could make a huge difference 6 months from now. Nobody knows. But that's what's so cool about it. Getting back to where crypto stands on that, I mean, the metaverse projects that maybe Max would have put into a metaverse index a couple of months earlier, Decentralized, Sandbox, all that. I mean, at the moment, they are quite dead, if we're being honest. I mean, there is still technical development ongoing. I mean, these projects have a huge war chest that they developed or built during the bull market. So they are not dead from a development perspective, but perception-wise, I think Sandbox, they have like 1 million followers on Twitter. They had a Twitter space a couple of days ago. I think there were like 70 people on there. You know, it's the moment there is no hype, but this can change. You know, I mean, this is crypto. Things go up exponentially, they go down exponentially. So who knows? Things might change, but what's more exciting than these last cycle metaverse solutions at the moment, from my point of view, is where the true innovation is. I think autonomous worlds have been mentioned already, fully on-chain games, the composability that this will bring to the table when it comes to combining assets from different metaverses, different games. I think this is where like the sexy stuff is happening at the moment. It's still very basic, but it's developing quickly. And I think that's where it's worth keeping an eye on in the next couple of months.
Yeah, if I can just chime in on that with a couple of thoughts. I think a lot of what you said, Roman, is very, very valid. One thing so you mentioned that the term is burned. I think that's like a big thing in crypto and in Web3. You know, it used to be crypto, then it was Web3. Everybody took crypto off their website. Now everybody has crypto back on their website. So, right, these terms kind of change, but we're still talking about the same stuff. So I think whether you call it metaverse or whether now it's an autonomous world, Apple calls it spatial computing, and that's the only way they call it, right? So different terms for kind of the same group of things. So I don't think we should be too worried from that perspective. Valentin, like my thoughts on the hype that we had are pretty clear. So in crypto, a lot of things are very, very difficult to visualize, but we are very reliant on popular media, on Twitter, and so on, in order to really get like hype throughout the entire community. And the metaverse and NFTs, for a matter of fact, also are just inherently visual, which just makes it really, really easy to like share images of it, distribute it. People are visual as well. So it has like an inherent advantage to other crypto topics because it's so visual, which I think could come to its benefit again in another cycle. And then talking about like huge VC investments that, I mean, they have dried up now in almost every space for except AI. AI is getting money right now, but everything else kind of VC has dried up a little bit. And we mustn't forget that venture capital funds usually run for like 7 to 10 years. Like you put your money in and you will not get any money out until 7 to 10 years after it's a lockup, which means that if a VC invests $1 million or $100 million today, they're looking to get the exit in 7 to 10 years. That's kind of what they're working for. So we need to think about like what's happening in 10 years. And that's why we think an index can be interesting as well, because you're participating in the growth of the space continuously. Like, yes, you're not investing at the very roots of it like you would with venture capital, or like, you know, Roman said, if you're looking at like the new stuff that's bubbling up, these sexy new worlds, kind of new ideas, yes, that would never make it to an index because it wouldn't be big enough on its way there, but you're still kind of participating in the long-term growth. So that's the idea of the index. That's why we also believe that the metaverse is here to stay, be it under the name metaverse or whatever different name it will have, and that it's kind of only developing forward, and predicting what exactly will be the big hit, of course, is quite difficult.
Maybe shooting back at you, Max, regarding the investment perspective of it, because you raised the topic already. Why should I, like, as an investor, should be investing in an index and not doing my research on the biggest projects sorted by market cap on CoinMarketCap and just investing in their tokens? Do I get, like, what are my benefits investing in the index, for example?
Sure. I mean, the benefit of the index is, like, first of all, not having to do your own research. You don't have to rebalance yourself, right? So there's a certain weighting mechanism. So it's like the same as an equities index. I think in particular for a space like the metaverse, and why it's relevant is because you're apart from doing your own research, doing your own rebalancing, spending a lot of time in the space, really digging deep, which, you know, a lot of people don't have time for because it's like, let's say, a smaller position in their overall portfolio. This is, like, in our opinion, the best way to go, because if you're buying like metaverse ETFs, you're buying stocks in MasterCard, Visa, Nvidia, Roblox, Nintendo, Electronic Arts. These are like what a metaverse ETF looks like today. If you're investing in venture capital, then that's a good idea. Again, it's your funds are gone for 10 years, so it's very illiquid, and also not everybody can cover the minimum investments. And even if you have, let's say, 200,000, there are some venture capital funds that take 10 million tickets minimum, like the really top-notch firms. So tokens are the only thing left for the quote-unquote average guy, I would say. And it's where we've seen, like, time and time again, the most, like, the highest returns, the most interesting stuff. The real innovation has been always, I think, in the crypto space, always bubbling up through these on-chain, more or less decentralized projects with tokens. It was the same for DeFi as well. So I think that's the place just to be at.
Yeah. Agree on that. Let me just
Let me just add maybe to Max, and I think one of the benefits for some kind of index for the average guy is that you can have exposure to stocks that cover the topic metaverse, but you want to have exposure to the tokens, and then you don't have any issue with custody or whatsoever. You could just invest in the index, and that's it. It's more effortless, I would say, and you don't have so much risk involved. For sure, you have to trust who's managing the index.
Yes.
You don't have to balance. You don't have to keep up to date too much. So I think it's a pretty stressless way to have some kind of exposure to this whole topic, crypto and metaverse. Yeah.
I guess the metaverse, a huge part of the blockchain side for the metaverse were NFTs. This was what it started the bull run in the crypto space when the metaverse rose into fame. What role do you see for NFTs in the gaming aspect, maybe not only gaming of the metaverse? I guess this was the first use case from blockchain point of view. How are NFTs transforming the user experience? I guess at Adhikar, you have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. Sure. No, really good question, Valentin, and maybe I can give a few thoughts of from my experience of working and in this area, and also just in general, right? I think, as you rightly said, I think the hype really started with the word NFTs, right? 2021 peak of the bull market. Everyone wanted to grab an NFT and share it on Twitter and say that I'm an NFT owner, and I think that kind of kicked off the more imagery or the visual NFT part of it, where you bought these photos of Bored Ape Yacht Club, whatever. But then at the side where the real action was also happening is just using non-fungible tokens as a tech in the whole metaverse gaming worlds, right? And especially on the gaming side, I can really give a couple of examples, and even yes, there is a bear market going on today, but even today as we speak, almost half of the transactions on some of the bigger blockchains is on play to earn gaming, and one of the reasons why it's happening is because you have these in-game assets, one, which can be tokenized as NFTs. And I'll give you an example of, let's say you have a sword, you're in this war game and you have a sword, and you're able to not just tokenize that sword because let's say it is on level 80 out of 100, so it has special powers. I can rent it to you during the game. You can use that sword for, let's say, 1 week, gain extra points, and then return the sword back to me. Again, I make a good amount of, let's say, in-game currency. You make a good amount of in-game currency. It's a win-win for all again. And this economy, in a lot of ways, I've seen especially in the Asian regions, because I think Asia continues to be one of the really strong hotbeds for blockchain gaming, because there are such strong communities there. And people love gaming in general. I think they're a very game-loving population in Asia. And I've seen that, even till today, irrespective of what's happening on the outside world, the fact is there are a lot of in-game assets which get traded as NFTs on a daily basis. Obviously, on the metaverse side, it's a bit different, because on the metaverse side, you're looking more at virtual land ownership, art collectibles showing up as NFTs in a particular virtual environment, even identities, which we spoke about just a few minutes back, in terms of how NFTs can be used as a, let's say, a form of authentication. If my avatar is tokenized as an NFT, I then enter a particular world. You will know that it's Adhikar entering the world. So that's one area. But the other very interesting aspect of NFTs in the metaverse, which I really want to talk about, is virtual events and experiences, right? Like, we've now seen this huge wave, a blast of celebrities and, whatnot, big organizations conducting events. And for them, the true sort of I would say, authentic way of engaging people is, buying an NFT. Say, you know what, if you want to be part of my virtual concert or an engagement, you will need that NFT to enter that particular experience. Or even you look at some of these bigger guys, automobile makers who want to, let's say, run some sort of NFTs in the virtual world. We now have Skoda coming in, or a lot of these guys entering the metaverse, and they want to use that tool. And I always believe that NFTs have been and will continue to be that tool which is linking Web 2 to Web 3 in blockchain, because, yes, there's AR, VR, which is sort of Web 2. And of course, the word metaverse kind of brings in the Web 3 feel to it. But the fact is, if you are using blockchain, that is true application of Web 3. And that is where NFT comes into the picture. And I strongly believe that we'll continue to see newer and even better use cases as we come along. And I think all of us agree that we probably come to level 1 or level 2 of the journey, and let's say we are probably at step level 2 or 5, maybe level 3, level 4, level 5. There'll be tons of other applications which open up. But yeah, I'm certainly very bullish on that aspect, and I continue to see a lot of activity taking off.
I just had an interesting thought about NFTs. Maybe the NFTs will be the technology connecting real-world assets to the metaverse.
Yeah.
Basically, if you have your Nike shoes, limited collection, it gets an NFT issued, so you can represent these in the metaverse. The question is, what do I do with these Nike shoes in the metaverse? What's my benefit out of it? This is question people ask themselves a lot. Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, maybe I'll just add for like 5-10 seconds and then pass it on to the other panelists. So Valentin, I think there is one area, right, when you tokenize, let's say, a real world asset, especially if it's goods of like a Nike shoe, which you pointed out. It's more of a social angle which comes into the picture, where, let's say, you own this very sexy Nike shoe and you say that, hey guys, you know what, I can brag about it. So think of those kind of NFTs being positioned more on the BAYC club, because you're an owner of a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT. That means you're in this exclusive club, and people look up to you and say, oh, you know what, that's really cool. So there's a lot of social angle attached to it in if you have to tokenize, let's say, consumables or consumer oriented goods. On the other end, if you look at more of the applications which are starting to see on NFTs, such as real estate, that is more enterprise, where, let's say, you're tokenizing fractional ownership of real estate, which is coming up, and stuff like that. That's more enterprise, where more business oriented. But to your one of the examples you pointed out, I feel it will be more on the social level, getting that community together, rally around them, and really for the business, it's a win-win, right? Because for them, there's so much hype about these cool Nike shoes, which you got, and now everyone wants to get a bunch of them. So sales increase, and it's just a virtual cycle. So those are some of my thoughts on some of these benefits. But yeah, would love to hear what others have to say.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I think this social signaling, this flexing, basically, that Adhika mentioned, I mean, that's a key human need, I guess. So I think this will always be essential for high-class NFTs, so to say. I think what they offer in addition to that is primarily like, and this is also an aspect that we're discussing with our business clients quite frequently, is like a mechanism of token gating, right? So if you own this specific set of Nike sneakers in the real world and you get the associated NFT, that provides digital experiences as well, or it allows you to contribute your ideas to the design of the next Nike shoe or something like that, right? And I think bridging, as you mentioned, Valentin, bridging the real world and the virtual world through these mechanisms, that's very powerful also when it comes to marketing and branding aspects.
Yeah. Let me, since we've been discussing a lot of gaming, virtual assets, bragging rights, Stefan, what's your opinion? What are typical application scenarios for the metaverse? We saw gaming, but what else do we have there?
Yeah, of course. I think education is one of the big applications, as well as business, of course, but education in a way that I think we could see some kind of revolution of how teaching is going on all over the world. I think we can make it more accessible. Be it through what we've seen during COVID, that we all meet in Zoom calls or like now Google Meets or stuff. But I think we can see this going even further and yeah, maybe even democratizing it for everyone. So and making it also more interesting by bringing together people from all over the world. We can meet with our avatars somewhere, anytime. Maybe we have AI translating for us, so really everyone can talk to anyone. And I think also maybe what we've seen with Apple, these VR glasses, they will make probably a huge difference. But to be fair, I think the price Apple is asking for it is still too high to make it really accessible for everyone. But I think this will change over the next years. One thing I found interesting as well is traveling. You can also make travel cheaper. So not everyone has to climb the Mount Everest or I don't know, walk through the desert, but you can have those experiences by just going into the metaverse, having more and more immersive experience with your friends. It's cheaper and probably also better for the environment. You don't have to fly everywhere all the time. So I think this you can also like test out, where do I want to go? Do I like this area? Do I like that shop? To continue with shopping, I think the e-commerce area will be disrupted. So you can have your measurements on your avatar and really go into a shop, try everything out, and then have it delivered to your home. So those areas will probably have experience the biggest changes. Maybe another one is healthcare also. You can right now already meet with your doctor online, but I guess the experience will just develop and be more sufficient for everyone. So I think those sectors will tremendously benefit from any kind of metaverse in whatever form, be it from Meta or be it some kind of blockchain application. We'll see about that.
There is I talked also to a professor from Germany. He's doing construction, researching the whole construction business, and he mentioned industrial metaverse and that it's very useful for planning your projects. Is there a connection between industrial metaverse and crypto, or it's more like it's a completely different topic? I guess also Adhikar is working on this issue as well. Where's the intersection between industrial metaverse and crypto? Is there any?
Yeah, Valentin, and I think I would say it's definitely a tough answer to that question. The reason being, so I'll tell you a few use cases in the industrial metaverse which are really picking up, and that is where I feel the next phase of adoption will come in for a technology like this. Is especially on the industrial side. Today you can virtually train employees, sitting across different countries, right? And I'll give you one example. We are soon going to be partnered with one of the largest mining metaverses. So in mining, traditionally, if you have to train someone, it's quite hazardous. The conditions are quite difficult. But the fact is, you can give them a level 1 version of training in the metaverse where you're probably wearing these VR headsets, telling them how to be safe in when you enter a mine. Make sure everything is up to date in terms of health, validations, etc., etc., and then push them or take them to the actual world. And that has made a huge difference in terms of employee safety. And that's always, been one of my primary motivations in the whole metaverse concept, is how can we potentially make work environment safer when we are trying to utilize this technology. That's one. And second, I think we briefly touched upon is the whole concept of design and prototyping, because I was just reading an article the other day. Renault actually had built an entire factory in one of their centers in Europe, where they first simulated their factory. They identified certain areas which were actually sort of cost intensive, and they removed them, and it kind of saved them a few hundred million euros. I'm not even talking about, let's say, 1, 2, 3 million euros. I think they've saved close to 780 million euros, where they redid the entire factory in the industrial metaverse virtually, and then they went to the physical construction. So in a lot of ways, it saved them money, resources, time, which would have otherwise been spent. And I think one area where I feel blockchain will come into the picture, not more of crypto, is asset tracking, right? Like you have all these industrial machineries within a particular factory, tokenizing them on chain, making sure these guys know end to end through the supply chain that, machine A is in zone A of the factory, machine B is in zone B of the factory. If you have them on the blockchain, that's a very interesting case study which we've been working on, is tokenizing assets on chain for the entire virtual layout. And it has a lot of, there's definitely a lot of interest from these C-level executives in the larger companies, because they want to keep their assets safe. And at the same time, they want to know that, I want to track these assets, because otherwise it's just human people or manually, for whatever reasons, you might miss out on a few things. If you have an audit coming up, you cannot really understand, if machine A is in the same zone, or why is it broken down? If it's broken down, why hasn't it been repaired? A lot of things come into the picture. So I believe that's a very strong use case of blockchain in the metaverse, or rather the industrial metaverse, which we'll continue to see.
Very interesting points. Definitely would be looking into it next week maybe. I wanted also to cover the topic of decentralization, the topic also of the Web3. Maybe we should cover also currency and how the metaverse will. It has some kind of currency. You need some kind of economy. Maybe crypto is exactly the thing people are looking for in terms of creating their own economy. But Roman, you've been focusing also more on Web3, and how does Web3 contribute to creating more decentralized or democratized metaverse, or does it do the opposite to this? What's your view on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think this is really, really pivotal. So I would say Web3, if we say blockchain in that context, it can really make a major contribution to making the metaverse, whatever it will be by the end, future-proof and globally accessible. Because if we think for a minute, what are the alternative options we have? I mean, there could be the corporate metaverse, as Meta, as Mark Zuckerberg, for example, would envision it, and it's controlled by one or several, a few entities, right? As Web 2 is currently, which would mean that there is censorship, that there is some sort of access control, that I, as a user or as my digital identity in that world, would not have self-sovereignty over what I do there, what I own. And therefore, I think it is for me really an ideological question that the settlement layer beneath that is a decentralized blockchain like Ethereum, which basically tracks who owns what, which is not controlled by any person or entity who could just say, no, we change the status, basically, we roll back the chain or whatever. We exclude certain people or entities. This is just not possible because it's a decentralized ledger running on a decentralized network. And I think that is really what is needed in order to create a digital realm that is globally accessible, that is fair, and that enables ownership for everybody in the world with an internet connection. And just think about how revolutionary that really is. And if we think about certain use cases that are already enabled by that, for example, in certain metaverse worlds, you can own your land and you can rent it out to somebody who you pay for farming it, stuff like that. So new kind of occupations and jobs and employment models are already emerging there. And it doesn't matter if the person who's doing the job is located in Kazakhstan, Venezuela, or Germany, what the color of the skin is, whatever, it really doesn't matter. So I think this really could be a new age of careers and opportunity that is enabled by that new digital world, if we manage to put it on a decentralized foundation.
If we stay on the topic of democratizing it, currently when I look at this metaverse projects, each one of them has their own currency. What do you guys think? Should we have a common currency for all metaverse projects, or is DeFi actually the solution where you can trade your local metaverse currency for, let's say, Ethereum? Or should we have something like common currency? Since I remember, especially mobile games, each one of these games has its closed system and it has its own currency. You can't do anything with it. And wouldn't be nice to like take out the currency you've earned in that game and maybe transfer it to another game and just having a running economy there?
If I may quickly continue, and then I'll hand right over to the other panelists. I think this is a key issue that you're addressing there. I think from a UX perspective, it's a nightmare if you have a separate currency in every world you enter, and it just breaks composability as well, right? Because that should be one key selling point of blockchain-based virtual worlds, that basically you can combine the building blocks of it. On the other hand, we have to understand why these local currencies are there, because these tokens are also the key funding mechanisms for the projects building the virtual worlds, right? So either we manage to somehow introduce probably Ethereum or some stable coin or something else as a joint overlaying currency, or we manage to have a really smart swap functionality maybe in the background that we can somehow abstract this complexity away from the user. But I think this is still an area that needs work and thought.
Yeah, I think as long as they are, let's say, on a blockchain, there will be some DeFi solution, I think, built to it. I think probably that the majority of the community will find consensus on some form of base currency, whether that's Bitcoin, whether that's ETH, whether that's a stable coin, whatever it may be. And then at the end of the day, everything will be, the worth of everything is a little bit reflected in that currency. Like, you know, Valentin, you made the example of modern games. There's in-game currency, but I can also buy that currency with euros, for example, or US dollars. The only issue is I can't get my euros back out of it, which is an inherent issue with those kind of games, but which is also, it's happening because they are not, right, they're not on blockchain, they're not decentralized, they're not interoperable, it's not an open framework. And it's because, of course, as a company in that space, you would certainly, it's a lot better to not let people get their money back out, let's say, right? It's just kind of how the economics of these games work as well. So decentral virtual worlds, I think, will make that simpler for people. I think interoperability is a problem that can be solved by, let's call it third parties, whether or not it's actually a third party or not, but by DeFi protocols, by just in general the composability of blockchains, EVM compatible blockchains, and so on. But I think for now, certainly it's an issue. And I mean, that doesn't even touch on the other issue of, it's like, well, what if I have, I don't know, a cool jacket in one of them on Decentraland? Can I wear it in Sandbox as well, right? So not only the actual currency, but also the assets, like how transferable are they? So that's, I think, another level to the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess also like, yeah, the NFTs have the same problem as currency. I can't have my Nike shoes in a different metaverse right now, I guess. I haven't followed the topic. But we touched a little bit on the topic of who should be maybe developing these virtual worlds. We have on the one side big tech, on the other side community developed metaverse systems like Decentralized. What's the difference between the two of them? I can first think of about advertising. I guess if we had the metaverse from Meta, we'll have some kind of in-game or in-world ads. And if we have like Decentralized, there may be something different, not exactly advertising or a different type of it. What are your thoughts on who should be developing this, or which one of these two types of development has a future? Let's put it like that.
I think it will be really difficult to escape advertising, so to say, just because, like, even if we take Decentralized as an example, what's to stop me from using my plot for putting advertising for somebody else on it, right? So I think that kind of stuff will just happen. In my opinion, we need development from both sides, just because, especially from an adoption perspective, something like the Apple Vision Pro, right? This hardware is, I think, an important step in getting to where we all envision the space to be in, let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And typically hardware is very hard to do. And it helps when you have a massive R&D budget, which these companies have. I think the only thing that we need to, I guess, I don't want to say hope for, but what would be crucial is that you can use this tech to actually access any kind of decentrally built metaverse, right? So that would be a little bit of a nightmare scenario if we have all of these nice decentrally built virtual worlds, but all the tech we have in the real world, like VR glasses, don't allow us to access them because that's owned by some big tech that wants you to only use their virtual world. So that's, I would say, a risk factor there.
An interesting point, yeah. So there is this barrier of hardware development and metaverse. On the same topic, I have an issue with real estate in the metaverse. So can someone also explain to me, since internet metaverse, this is a zero marginal cost society where you can create whatever assets you want, and unless you have the limitation of NFTs. But why should we have real estate in the metaverse, since we can always expand it or shrink it? Why should we? I'm going back to the example of Decentraland. They're selling a lot of real estate there, so they can explain to you, okay, the argument is will be closer to some big company, so your space will be visited a little often, but still we don't go by foot in the metaverse. We can fly, we can travel, we can teleport even. Why should we own real estate in the metaverse? This is a question I've always asked myself. Any suggestions?
Yeah, if I may, Jay, I mean, by the end of the day, if we say that a large part of our future lives will be digital, then maybe it's just a human need to have a digital home as well. Maybe that's a more philosophical thought, but it might not be wrong. And when it comes to, let's say, the economic incentives, I mean, one of them, of course, would be, yeah, we mentioned advertising already. So if you have certain foot traffic passing by, then you might have an attractive location and you might be able to get some fees for doing your marketing there. I think the aspect that works better at the moment in incentivizing people to actually buy virtual land is usually resources that are located on that land and that somehow can be mined or farmed or something. I mean, often that evolves into some sort of token Ponzi game by the end of the day, but that's, I think, where at the moment actual economic value can be derived in certain metaverses. When it comes to scarcity, I think that's a good point to cycle back to our previous discussion. So by the end of the day, it's a matter of trust, right? So let's say there is a metaverse and they say we have 30,000 parcels of land and that's it. We're not going to mint anymore. They still could, of course, technically, right? They can always break their promise. And if it's a centralized entity, be it Meta or be it a small core team of crypto developers, I need to trust these guys, right? But if it's a truly decentralized organization where I can also vote as a real estate owner, for example, I still can't decide by myself the outcome, but I have an influence and I have a voice. And I know that other people in the community who do the voting with me, who are also owners, for example, of a certain parcel, that it's in their best interest to keep the value of that, right? So I, as an investor, would be better incentivized to invest in that area where at least I have some control over what is happening and I cannot just be surprised by a centralized team announcement. Oh, we're gonna mint 30,000 parcels more because we need the money. So that's where decentralization actually makes life better for the investors and owners as well.
Are DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, the future of managing these metaverses, like the governance of them? Or should we expect someone like big tech telling us this is going to happen with this project?
I would say that we will find out over the next years. As Max says, it's going to be a development over 5 to 7 or even more years. Maybe now gaining some more speed through AI, but I guess we'll have to see how these models and concepts work out. We'll have to see how Meta and all the other companies are really approaching these aspects, and we'll have to see in crypto how the models, the different DAO variations are actually working. And coming back to the topic with the parcels, the land parcels, I think this also highlights the risks that are still involved when investing, when buying land. You have to trust, of course, somehow it can be verified, but yeah, for everyone who is interested, it's definitely, it's a still very risky segment to invest. So that's why maybe also the index idea or something where you can just buffer, lower the risk a bit is better, but it's certainly something else but than buying real estate somewhere outside in the city, than going online and then buying land parcels. There's no guarantee as of yet, I'd say.
Yeah, my last point to is that is the reason I was asking the question. Back to the example of the Nike shoes, the ultimate idea would be to transfer it between metaverses. And I can't transfer my real estate from one metaverse to another one because they're completely different, maybe. That was the reason I was asking and wondering about this. But we've covered the question already. So talking a lot about crypto, metaverse, like asking the whole round, do you have like favorite projects, favorite innovations in the crypto space that are doing interesting stuff around metaverse? What are the big players from your point of view? Suggestions?
Maybe I'll quickly chime in. Valentin, so again, for me personally, I would say I have some favorite utilities or use cases in the metaverse more than projects. I would say so. Particularly, I think I'm very bullish on enterprises, that's big businesses, brands, or even enterprise in general, using metaverse as a tool either in their omni-channel strategy or either reaching out to a more younger population, the Gen Z, millennial, alpha population, because they're far more used to screens, right? I think when we were growing up, yes, we were used to screens, but the fact is, let's say a child who's coming in now, I think he or she is way more exposed to than we ever were maybe when we were kids, and that's a very strong population segment, I think, which will only grow over the next few years. That's number one. The second one, again, I'm also pretty much a fan of trying to bring in the real world, in at least on the NFT part of it, and trying to tokenize it in the virtual world. Yes, I mean there is going to be this learning curve of the tech, because everyone's trying to understand it, the utility, enterprise use case, etc. But yeah, it's going to take time. But that's one of my favorite sort of topics always. And third one, I think, is really any sort of community oriented metaverse or gaming project is something I really like. And as I said before, even during the earlier part of the conversation, is there are a few regions in the world who have really strong communities. I think I spoke about Asia. I spoke about, I think Latin America is again, very interesting region. Not a lot of people talk, but the fact is people love using, trust me, they love using crypto there, and they do want to get involved in projects which have that intersection of either gaming or metaverse with crypto. And the last one I think is on the industrial side, which we already spoke about, and especially I'm a big fan of what NVIDIA is trying to do on the industrial metaverse side, because they're building something called as the Omniverse, which we are also closely working on, and I think that's one project, especially because it's a big tech company, right? So they have all the money and resources to get this mainstream compared to any smaller organization trying to do it. And when you have these sort of people, spreading the word and doing that publicity, I think that's how an industry goes. And that's one of the reasons I feel, guys like these trying to enter the metaverse is good. And the hottest topic of debate right now is the biggies entering the crypto world, right? Like you have the BlackRocks and Fidelities of the world, filing ETF applications. And while, there are cons of, people say, yes, it's going to centralize. The fact is, they are going to get those users. You like it or you don't. The fact is, BlackRock has tons of users who they can get into crypto with, who otherwise, all of us sitting here will be difficult, even though we believe in the power of decentralization. The fact is, to convince someone about this whole concept of decentralization might take a few hours for us, but for BlackRock, it might take a few minutes or a few seconds, because surely they have that power in the industry. So yeah, I guess those are some of my thoughts in terms of, it's the favorite areas or themes to explore over the next couple of years or so. And yeah, I mean, those are, I think, areas where I'm super bullish.
If I may add two rather nerdy projects, not investment advice, of course, but one would be Aavegotchi, which is a pioneer project on Polygon, has been around for 2 years and has been building, I think, a pretty amazing metaverse based on on-chain NFTs, which are the Aavegotchis, which are pretty cute as well. They have a highly complex economy by now and a super active DAO, one of the most active DAOs in crypto, actually. And it's really cool to be a part of that. And a second one would be Pirate Nation NFT, which is an early on-chain metaverse being built right now. I've just started looking into it, and it's pretty cool to see what they are doing with the limited infrastructure that is still available in that space.
Interesting point. Definitely gonna check these out. And since we're running out of time, I have one last question, which many people are asking themselves, learning about crypto metaverse. What are these? What are the career opportunities in this space? What skills should I bring so I can be also part of this industry? What are your thoughts on this? Like programming or game theory? What do we have out there? What are the needs?
Yeah, this is really, like, what I would say, it's open to all kinds of skill sets. Of course, the technical guys are always welcome, but people with functional experience, people who can do marketing, who have a good idea of how to write governance proposals, do branding for projects, everybody is welcome. And I think what really differentiates a Web3 or a metaverse career from classical careers is you just go out and build your profile. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have an internet connection, you can use your real face, your picture, or you can use some cartoon character. It doesn't matter. You go online, you join a project community in Discord or wherever, and you just see what to-dos are open and how can I contribute. And you start doing that at the beginning. Usually you won't get paid for that. But once you've done a couple of good exercises, once you've built a reputation, offers will come to you. Once you're doing a good job, you're building your online reputation. You can actually build 2, 3, 4 reputations in parallel if you want to, with different focus areas. There are really no borders here. And that's what I find so fascinating, and where I've seen quite a number of people really building a new career and a new life based on Web3.
If there are any other points, feel free to add. Otherwise, we're approaching the end of the panel. If I see no other points, so let's do some final thoughts or intro. Tell everyone who's watching where can they find you, and if you want to promote something or tell them something interesting about your project activity, let them know. We can start with Max, and this is how we close the round today.
Yeah, sure. So easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn, Maximilian Bruckner, and the company is the website is 21e6.io. We publish research regularly about crypto hedge funds, like, for example, what kind of custodians they use, what their performance is like, and so on. And then, of course, we're working on said Metaverse Index. So if that interests you, connect with me, send me a message, and I'll be sure to get back to you.
Thanks, Adhikar.
Yeah, I mean, happy to kind of speak to or receive anything on the metaverse side. Again, more so on, as I said, enterprise, industrial, gaming. I think these are the areas which we focus a lot on, building the infrastructure, the main 3D infrastructure for it, and sort of tokenizing them on chain. Again, best way as usual is on LinkedIn, Adhikar Naidu. And yeah, I'm looking forward to just chatting up with anybody who wants to just learn more, and happy to guide them in this area.
Thanks, Adhikar. And Stefan, how about you?
Yes, sure. Also, a best way to find me is on LinkedIn, but also picking up the career topic. Of course, I have to mention our Web3 Talents program. So if you're interested in starting a career in crypto, be it with a focus on Bitcoin, DLT, NFTs, or DeFi, check out our website. It's web3talents.io, and or text me on LinkedIn, and then we can kickstart.
Thanks. And last but not least, Roman.
Yeah, LinkedIn as well. Just get in touch, and companies Web3 architects. If you have any need for consulting, blockchain forensic services, education, onboarding, or talent in Web3 and blockchain, just get in touch.
Great. And that's a wrap up. And I would like to thank all the viewers and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
Good one.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.